So very glad to have this trying to also. Pleased to be here with you and what a magnificent weekend that this is. And I understand that it's been advertised that I will be giving you my Gettysburgh Address. And I should warn you ahead of time, this is probably a dumb little joke. I only visited in Gettysburg one time. I never lived in Gettysburg. I never had a Gettysburg address. Well, I did have the great pleasure this last November of visiting there in Gettysburg, and I hope that nobody objects. Just a few more comments here before we begin. This is May the 3rd, and it is the year of 1864. And we are into the 4th year of this horrible, horrible war. This war that everybody was sure was going to be over very, very quickly. And here we are, hundreds of thousands of people have died during these years now, and we do have hopes. I feel very strongly that we must bring this country back together, no matter what the cost is. And I had the great fortune to have General Grant. Now, we did bring General Grant to the east after his successes out in the west, which this last 4th of July was Vicksburg. I trust you're familiar with, and that's the battle Chattanooga this past November. So we did promote General Grant, First Lieutenant General in the Army since George Washington. And he insists on going out with the Army, and he is down there. His army of 110,000 or so people have crossed the river. They're now into Virginia, and I am on pins and needles waiting for word from General Grant from that army. And their idea is to go on down through and hope to take General Lee's army, which is there in Virginia too, and it is our hopes and prayers that we get this war over with very, very, very quickly. And by the way, General Grant is right there in the same area, there where the Battle of Chancellorsville was just 1 year ago, exactly, which turned out to be a disaster. And my corporal has volunteered to be my microphone stand, so I appreciate that one. I thought you might be interested in a letter that I wrote just this past April 30th to General Grant. And Lieutenant General Grant, not expected to see you again before the spring campaign opens. I wish to express in this way my entire satisfaction with what you have done up to this time, so far as I understand it. The particulars of your plans I neither know or seek to know. You are vigilant and self-reliant, and pleased with this, I wish not to obtrude any constraints or restraints upon you. I am very anxious that any great disaster or the capture of our men in great numbers shall be avoided. I know these points are less likely to escape your attention than they would be mine. If there is anything wanting which is within my power to give, do not fail to let me know it. And now with the brave army and the just cause, may God sustain you. Yours very truly, Abraham Lincoln. And I cannot tell you the feeling of relief that I have to the general, that I can put my faith and trust in. And I regret to say I've been so disappointed with so many of my generals, especially here in the East, over these past 3 years. And I can say that I had concerns about General Grant with the rumors of him having a problem with his drinking. And I did have a committee here a while back that came to me to express their concern, and I asked them if they could find out what kind of whiskey the General Grant drinks, and I'd furnish that to all of my generals. Well, things not going well here in the East. It was just this past July, the first 3 days of July, that the mighty armies from the north and the south just happened to meet there at a sleepy little town in south central Pennsylvania, which you will not recognize as being Gettysburg, and it was not really planned that the armies meet there. And 3 days of horrible, horrible battles, I understand 52,000 casualties in those 3 days' time. And on the first day, the Confederates were really overwhelmed by Union Army. The second day, I guess, was pretty much a goodbye. And then the third day was Tennessee is just about all in Union hands. And I have to give credit to an unsung hero here, another Ohio General, General William Rosecrans, that pretty much cleared out Tennessee by his own. Well, it was in this past November 19th, that they had the dedication ceremonies here at Gettysburg to dedicate the National Cemetery that had been established there, and I was invited, I suppose, as a courtesy to attend the ceremony, and I don't think they expected me to attend. And when they felt considering that occasion that I should attend, and when they received my acceptance, I suppose as a courtesy, they asked if I might say a few appropriate remarks. And they emphasized a few appropriate remarks. Principal Speaker, Mr. Edward delivered a 2-hour address. And I might say, regarding my writing that speech, I only had some 3 weeks or so to prepare my speech. I wrote all of my speeches myself, and when I knew a speech was coming up, of course, I would keep in my mind something that might be appropriate for that speech. And I generally would write down the spots on a little slip of paper, stick it in my hat band. When the time came, put the slips of paper in some sort of a logical order. And it is not true, I did not write my speech on that train ride between Washington City and Gettysburg. In the first place, those tracks were so rough and those cars rocked around, so there's no way anybody could have read anything that they would have attempted to write on that car. So, of course, I was keeping in my mind anything that might be appropriate, and I did stay in David Wells that organized that program, stayed in his home right there in the square there at Gettysburg that night. He made some revisions that evening before. The next day, we did ride out the horse and quite a parade going down to the cemetery. And Mr. Everett did deliver a magnificent address, and perhaps one other little story that I hope you might be interested in. While I was here in Gettysburg, I happened to visit with a gentleman who told me that his only son had fallen there at Little Round Top during that second day's battle there at Gettysburg. And he was going to go look at that spot where he had lost his son. And that broke my heart. And here are the words that I said to that gentleman. You have been called upon to make a terrible sacrifice for the Union, and a visit to that spot, I fear, will open your wounds afresh. But oh, my dear sir, if we had reached the end of such sacrifices and had nothing left for us to do but to place garlands on the graves of those who have already fallen, we could give thanks even amidst our tears. But when I think of the sacrifices of life yet to be offered, and the hearts at home yet to be made desolate before this dreadful war, so wickedly forced upon us, is over, my heart is like lead within me, and I feel at times like hiding in the deep darkness. And I tell you, there's been many, many, many times that I felt like hiding in the deep darkness. I just cannot tell you how discouraging these 3 years of this horrible war. Well, there at the ceremony, I was finally invited to speak after Mr. Everett's 2-hour, and I shouldn't say this, but the minister seemed like once he got started with his prayer, he just couldn't quit. Long, long prayer, and then we had the band music too, which of course I thoroughly enjoyed that. And finally, it was my time to say my few appropriate remarks. And before I begin, I find many people are familiar with my opening words, which are 407 years ago. But I found very few people that have ever stopped to think or to figure what year I am referring to. One score is 20 years. 4 times 20 would be 87 years prior to 1863, this last November. And the way I record it anyhow, that comes out to the year 1776, which I just here are the words that came up. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived dedicated and long endured. We are men on a great battlefield in that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The great men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our court power to add or detract. The world will no longer remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here and thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. That from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these men shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish. When I concluded those remarks, I received very little applause. I suppose the folks didn't believe I was finished already. Remember, they had just listened to a 2-hour address, and I thought the speech to be a flat failure. And I reckon after the critic of the newspapers and all, it was decided to be a decent speech. I was so very pleased. I received a note from Mr. Everett, congratulating me for saying better in my 2-minute speech than what he had said in his 2-hour speech. And by the way, as I was delivering those remarks, I was commencing to feel the chills up and down my back and the perspiration running down my body. And this was November 19th, was not a hot day by any means. And I was coming down with the mild form of smallpox. And I was ill in bed. I was quarantined for a while after that. And well, I did make a little joke out of that, perhaps an undertone little joke. I said that I finally have something I can give to everyone. So I thank you for your very